good evening. So essentially this session is going to be about the last minute sort of tips in anthropology. This is not expecting you to learn anything new or too many things new, right? The whole idea here is to ensure that you can maximize your score with whatever it is that you have, studied in the last 2.5, 3 months, right? Nothing more, nothing more, just maybe like a few things here and there, right? Generally, these are the kind of tips that I've sort of designed based on like your own feedback. So the last couple of days when I've been giving you feedback, I've been trying to go through your previous papers and just trying to understand where you stand, what are the kind of patterns of your writing, and where exactly would be the kind of the biggest gains that you could get just by reorganizing a few things. Okay, just by keeping a few things in mind. How do you keep those things and how do you implement all of those things? I'll probably try to just touch upon today. Okay, the first thing when you look at the paper is skim through the paper. Okay, and I'll mention this at the very end as well. Expect the paper to be a shocker. Expect a shocker. The paper is only getting more and more unpredictable, but you go into the exam hall thinking that the paper is going to be unpredictable. Whatever you've studied probably is not going to be there in that paper. Whatever the kind of paper that you would love to have is not going to be the kind of paper that you're going to see there. Okay, but it is okay, because if you are expecting it, many other people are also expecting it. But using your knowledge, and because you're mentally prepared, you can actually try to see what are the kind of things that I know about this particular topic. Where exactly is this topic possibly from in the syllabus? If you understand that particular context, how exactly would you sort of try to create or craft something based on that syllabus heading? Okay, what is it that you know, and how exactly can you best craft an answer within the circumstances? So expect questions. For instance, if they're going to be like, let's say question number 1, okay, 1A, B, C, D, E. Okay, okay, this is supposed to be difficult for you, this is supposed to be easy. If you feel all of them are easy, then there is something possibly wrong. Okay, and I'm just even telling you this. Okay, expect this to be relatively, at least, 30-40% of your paper is going to be you have to expect that it is going to be relatively on the harder side. So think structure and then try to come out with something during that exam hall. So skim through the paper, select the questions that you want. Okay, select questions. Okay, and take 5 minutes to select the questions that you want to attempt. Okay, so question 1 is compulsory. Question number 5, A, B, C, D, E, these are compulsory. The rest you have to choose which are the kind of combinations that you are going to sort of select. You can use up to 5 minutes. Okay, and I'm saying 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a lot. 5 minutes is almost like one question. Okay, 1 10 marker. But why am I saying 5 minutes? Because you think properly and choose the best, and after that, don't even think about it once again. Okay, after that, just follow what you have just planned. Okay, just go with your strategy. Okay, so that's the most important thing. Second thing is, see, I have a few slides regarding time. See, 7 minutes for 10 markers, 11 minutes for 14 markers, and 14 minutes for, 11 minutes for 15 markers and 14 minutes for 20 markers. This is generally the trend. Expect that you are going to have only 2 hours and 50 minutes. Okay, 2 hours and 50 minutes. Why do I say that? You've already written the mains, so you probably know that they come in a little late. Or the paper is, you're probably at the back, you get the paper slightly later. Okay, they take the paper like, immediately during the bell. You might have to go use the washroom, you have some writing related issues. Sometimes you just have a brain fade or a brain freeze that your mind is not thinking. You have to sign those invigilators, those forms, so many things. So 2 hours and 50 minutes. So you always keep planning. How do you sort of choose? Ensure that in the last 30 minutes, you don't have too many things pending, and don't just think about the last 30 minutes. You plan it in such a manner that in every half an hour, you have a particular target. Okay, and what are the kind of targets that you should have? I'm probably going to tell you more about that. Okay. The order that I generally prefer is that 20 markers, 15 markers. Okay, these are more analytical. Okay, a lot more room for creativity. Okay, case studies, examples, structuring. Even if you have 10 markers, and let's say you've even run out of time. Okay, 10 markers and you've run out of time, which you should not have. So instead of 70 minutes, having 70 minutes here, let's say even if you have 60 minutes, you can still handle it. Okay, even if you have 60 minutes, you can still handle it. And why do I say that? Because it is only 2 pages. So if you have 2 pages, okay, this is your 2 pages, right? this much is going to go in your conclusion, this much is going to go in your introduction. So this basically leaves you with only so much space. So just try to have one side heading, second side heading, possibly 3 to 4 side headings, and answer the question. Okay, just structure, and then you can write the rest. Here it'll be a lot easier for you to finish because you don't have to go much in depth. Going into depth and thinking about the depth and trying to explain those depth is going to be what is difficult. But if it's a 10 marker, it'll be fairly up to you to choose what are the kind of 4 subheadings that you want, 3 to 4 subheadings. Okay, even if it is 3, it's fine. 4 is also fine. Okay, 5 is also fine. See, 3 to 5. Okay, and keep an eye on the clock. Time, I think, is the most important thing. Everybody can write very, very good answers and select topics. Okay, for some it'll be biological anthro, for some it'll be archaeology, for some it'll be fossils, for some it'll be like, part A of paper 1, part B of paper 2, things of that nature. But if you do not finish the paper, okay, or if you finish like so many questions the last half hour, I would suggest that, I would even say that is actually not finishing the paper. Right? If you want to finish the paper, you're finishing, a proportional amount of marks every single half an hour block. Okay, if that is the case, then you have a very good chance of maximizing your score. Okay, try to maintain that. Okay, after every half an hour, you count the number of marks that you have attempted. Generally, what I try to do is have at least 45 marks attended every single half an hour. Okay, every half an hour have 45 marks. Okay, approximately 45, and every hour at least 80 marks. If you are anywhere close to not being somewhere here, then trust me, the attempt may not be to your best. Okay, you might be writing excellent sort of answers, but still that would mean that you're going to sort of take a beating somewhere towards the end, and that is something that you want to avoid. Okay, so always keep in mind 45 marks. If you're going to be a slow starter, you start off kind of slow, then take some of the easier questions and make it ensure that 45 marks are sort of attempted within the first half an hour. Okay, if it is not there, let's say that you've attempted only 40, at least 80 marks should be attended within the first half. Okay, so if it is 80, so see, even if it is 80, it is difficult. 80, and the last 1 hour you have to have 90. Okay, so 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, that will be the best strategy. Okay, whether you want to answer the easy questions first, or whatever, if you already have a plan, you can stick to it. But generally, this is the kind of order that I prefer: 20 markers, 15 markers. Okay, diagrams, examples, case study, better structuring. Right, in these kind of things, you can have 6 to 7 sort of subheadings. Okay, 6 would be, I think, ideal in my opinion. Okay, in formal paper. Okay, not like GS. So a point cannot be and should not be just like one line. Okay, for a point, try to have 3 to 4 lines. So this is basically the depth. This is the analytical angle. So instead of having a lot more points like you had in your GS paper, we try to come out of the GS paper, okay, and try to have more number of dimensions and explain the dimensions in a better manner, 3 to 4 lines. Okay, so these are the most important sort of aspects that I've told you here so far. Most important thing I told you, right? Like make the structure. Okay, when I say structure, you at least plan this. Okay, intro, I'm going to have something like this. Okay, think about the body, and the body is also kind of important, but I would say intro and conclusion are also kind of important. So within the body, let's say subheading 1. Okay. Okay, subheading 2, 3, 4, whatever it is you want to have, and then you want to write your answer, and then basically your conclusion. And in your conclusion, try to bring in a scholar, a thinker, make it impactful. Okay, at least have 2 sentences. Now see, when I say you make a structure, try to use the keywords given in the question itself. For instance, and I think it is true for each and every one of you who had written this, maybe there are some exceptions which I don't recall. There was a question about significance. Okay, critical examine or something like that, significance and implementation of FRA. Okay, and all of you have written absolutely beautiful answer on FRA. Instead, what you should do is introduction about FRA. Okay, write a little about an FRA body. Okay, something about FRA, some details, some details. And then you have to get into a big chunk, which is significance. Okay, and then you have to write about implementation. How is it being implemented? Okay, and then you have to conclude. Okay, you can have some, within this, you can have case studies, examples, stats, anything and everything. But remember, if this was, as I've given in the question paper, 20 marker, okay, that means 16 marks. Introduction and conclusion is, let's say, 2 and 2, maybe let's say another couple of marks for presentation. The rest of the 16 to 15 marks, something like that, is going to be, okay, 8 marks here and 8 marks here, arbitrary. Okay, I'm just giving random numbers. Okay, but this is the major chunk of your marks. If you've written everything on FRA alone, okay, the marks that they can give you is only for the significance and only for the implementation. So even if you know something about FRA, some details, you again link it back to significance. It is significant because it sort of tries to undo the historical injustice. It is significant because these are the kind of features. They can get up to 4 hectares of land under so and so conditions, right? You get the point. Whatever you know also has to be phrased under, so basically demand of the question, answer to the demand of the question. Okay, is that very clear? So the question is, if it's a 20 marker, it is not about this, it is about exactly how the question is framed. So you make that structure based on the keywords. Every question, when you see the question, you try to see, okay, this is my keyword, this is my keyword, and I'm going to structure it here. So whatever knowledge that you have here, you try to somehow fit in within the keywords of the question. Is that clear? That is very, very, very sort of important. Okay, so even if you have that ability to score extremely high marks there, you will not be able to reach those high marks if you have not shown them that this is the significance, if you have not shown them that these are the implementation related issues. Okay, I hope that is clear. Okay, and there are some pointers, and if you guys want, you can take like possible screenshots of this. Okay, no worries about this, but try to have all of these things into your paper. And how do you sort of have these things without this one? And here you go. So essentially what I want you to do is make a checklist. Okay, you can, in case you're writing it down, you can have it, or you just make just take some screenshots and have a checklist like this. Okay, just have that the next whatever you're going to see, this has to go into your paper. Okay, this has to go into your paper, 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 and do this mapping exercise. And I will tell you a little more further. Okay, map number 1. Okay, I'm going to do this in, let's say, question 5E. This one I'm going to do it in 5C, and this one 1B, this one 2A, and this nature. So wherever you have the question paper, I wish I had the question paper. Let's say this is my question paper with all this. Okay, you map whatever ideas that you have. Oops. Okay, can you guys still see my screen? Yeah, if you can still see my screen, thank you. So essentially you'll have question number 1, A, B, C, D, E, things of that nature, right? So you just say, okay, I'm going to use the scholar here, this scholar 1, scholar 2, okay, the stat here, okay, and things, all of this in the question paper itself, so that when you see the question paper, if you can plan and do all of these things in the first 5, let's the first 5 minutes are for you to choose the question, the second 5-minute slot, okay, second 5 minutes, if you can plan this in your question paper, what would happen is that all of your thinking job is already done. You will not forget this. When you see the question paper, okay, when you see your answer copy, all you have to do is whatever you have mapped here, you just try to add that one element. Okay, because let us say the first half an hour you can think, second half an hour you can think, maybe slowly your mind is not thinking enough. So whatever thinking and addition that you have to do, you try to sort of have a mapping sort of an exercise and go ahead and do it. Even if it is like some 20 things that you want to ensure that it goes into your paper 1, you have 20 things that you have to ensure that goes into your paper 2. Just have it and plan that in the very beginning and ensure that you just sort of accommodate that. Okay, now see, when I say a scholar, see, anthropology is a formal paper, right? You cannot say, right? I cannot say that, Ankit cannot make a claim because he's not an anthropologist. Okay, Kusuma cannot sort of make any sort of a claim because Kusuma is not an anthropologist. But what you could possibly do is that you can quote scholars to make a claim. Okay, quote scholar to support your argument. Right? For instance, you don't want to talk about isolation without talking about barrier relevance initial stance. You don't want to talk about assimilation unless you want to, unless you bring in Gore. You don't want to talk about integration unless you bring in, very relevant, okay, and Nehru in very relevant towards the later stages, and Nehru, because these are all the people who have contributed to that. That shows understanding, and that also shows appreciation. Okay, understanding and appreciation. And many of you have written absolutely great answers without the scholars. It is there, but trust me, generally in anthropology, and I've heard this from anthropology professors themselves in universities, and some of them even correct for UPSC and local state level exams, that if you do not have scholars, okay, and you've written a very GS kind of an answer without the help of the supporting arguments or supporting scholars, instead of a maximum of 7 marks for a 10 marker, they will have to limit it to only a 3. They cannot give you any more than that. That is how it is. Okay, to the formal subject. Okay, and if in a formal subject, when you're sort of writing and publishing a material, it cannot be your own sort of opinions. You want to be sort of backing it up with anthropologists. If it's 11 marker, 4.5. If it's a 14 marker, 14 you can maximum get, then you can probably get not more than 6. So you understand, even if it's a very great answer and it is just your answer, you will be limiting your sort of possibilities because of the lack of scholars. So whenever every single question that you have, ensure that you do not write it without the help of a scholar. You try, even if you do not know a scholar, you somehow try to link it to something possible. And these are some of the ideas that I could probably tell you. See, for instance, just a second. Sorry about that, guys. I have a couple of puppies and they're being a little, yeah. Okay, there you go. So for instance, see, a lot of, and especially if you guys are using, mostly our class notes, see, most of the class notes, for social cultural anthropology have been derived from Majumdar. So whatever I have said in class, right, while teaching you, whatever I have sort of given examples for teaching you, a lot of them are sourced from Majumdar. So you know who's Majumdar, okay? So you can definitely have him in your social cultural anthropology answers. Okay, 100% you should have. Okay, you do not want to be writing a paper without having the name Majumdar. Okay, similarly, if it is a paper 2, Redfield, okay, Redfield, okay, Robert Redfield, Milton Singer, Meckham Marriott. Even if you can just introduce it as, the historical background is that, help in sort of coming out with many of these theoretical leads, was spearheaded by Robert Redfield himself with his Mexican village studies, okay, and his students, Milton Singer and Meckham Marriott in India. Okay, bring those elements there. Okay, so again, now, so what is this? The first one, second one, third one, fourth one. You get the picture? This is basically your checklist. Ensure that in archaeology you end with DK Bhattacharya somehow. How do you sort of, even if you say that, this helps us reconstruct the past, right? It gives us all this kind of idea. Again, go back and say that it is DK Bhattacharya who's done it. Everything that we have done in archaeological anthropology, and especially when our material has been sourced from, the prehistory of India, DK Bhattacharya book, or European prehistory, which is again DK Bhattacharya, written old book, right? And similarly, if it is fossils, again, you can utilize, the fact that, it helps us understand human evolution, right? Human evolution, our own sort of past better. Okay, it is DK Bhattacharya or David Pilbeam. This is a term that you generally see in our classic book, right? Peanuts, right? And you see a lot of Pilby, okay? Man's Early Ancestors, 1967. If it is tribal India, most of the examples, most of the kind of things and the stories that I've told you are generally from LP Vidyarthi's Tribal India book, okay? Tribal Culture of India. So use this, LP Vidyarthi, 1967, I believe. Okay, or 1973, sorry. Okay, 1973. I'll just confirm that and I'll just let you guys know. Okay, if it is biology, genetics, right? You bring in, okay, Fisher, Wright, Dobzhansky, Haldane, Bateson, right? Just remember it like this, Fawad, FWDH, right? These are the kind of terms that we've seen multiple times in our class. A lot of these, the fact that, synthetic theory and the advancements that we have seen, it comes from because of the works of Fisher and Wright and Dobzhansky and Haldane and Bateson. So Fawad B. Okay, something like that. Okay, so again, so do you understand? So this is 4, this is 5, okay, this is 6, this is 7, this is 7, this is 12. Okay, this is the kind of thing that I'm telling you. If it is applied genetics, genetic counseling, or something like that, you have your own sort of scholar, right? It can even be an institute, okay? Any sort of institute on medical genetics, okay? Are there any professors? who have sort of contributed to genetic counseling or sort of recommend counseling. Use these guys, okay, just like what we have done it in our class, okay. Wherever I've quoted any of these sort of examples in class, I've given you where the scholars, who are the scholars. You should have these in your paper, okay. And how do you have this in your paper? When you're just randomly writing an answer, because you know the concept, you will not think of them. So that's why I'm saying you have a checklist and map it in the beginning, map in first 10 minutes, so that all of these will be reflected in your answer. Imagine having all of this in your paper, how much of a difference it will make. Okay, you will be writing in a very scholarly manner. Okay, and similarly, see, what is anthropology? These are the kind of definitions that can be used in many different questions, right? A lot of the questions you feel like, a lot of some of the questions in which you don't know how to sort of have anthropology there. So look at this, A.L. Kroeber saying that it is a science of man. So in case, since anthropology is a science of man, it's a scientific study, if you want to just write it like that, according to K.L. Kroeber, go ahead. Okay, introduce A.L. Kroeber. Okay, he's an important person. Similarly, anthropology is the study of man and his works. Okay, because it entails the study of man and all of his works, just like that. And then you can just go with M.J. Herskowitz. Right, out of all the sciences which study various aspects of man, anthropology is the one that comes closest to the total study of man. So in case you want to talk about holism, okay, integration, okay, these sort of aspects again go back to Clyde Clucon. And this is not only for what is anthropology, what are the subfields of anthropology. This can go in many, many, many different set of questions, right? You can just introduce it something like with this, or even in a passing reference you can make. So ensure that, A.L. Kroeber is here. So we had 12. So this is your 13, this is your 14, this is your 15. Okay, anthropology is a scientific study. Okay, physical, social, cultural development. Okay, since the appearance on Earth. So the historical aspect. So every time you want to talk about historical aspect, you bring in Jacob and Stern. Okay, it does not even have to be that you memorize this definition, you just have to utilize this. Again, some of the classic examples. See, always remember that you're absolutely unique, just like everybody else. So the fact that the uniqueness of each and every person. Okay, in case, especially for tribal portion, we won't have a society if we destroy the environment. Margaret Mead. Okay, anthropology is the most humanistic of sciences and the most scientific of humanities. A.L. Kroeber. Right. And there is something about diversity. So there are these. You just try to ensure that, in case you find it difficult to sort of bring in a scholar, you can bring some of these elements. So just keep this in mind. In your mind itself, you just tell yourself, okay, I have 7 quotes, and I'll give you one more quote. That's a very good quote. I forget like which one I'm missing. This quote, I'm going to use it here. This quote, I'm going to use it here. This quote, I'm going to use it here. And it does not have to be the exact quote. You just have to sort of paraphrase these ideas. Okay, and similarly, see, when you talk about, when your paper should have this term holistic, it should talk about global perspective, it should talk about evolutionary perspective, it should talk about, the fact that it is study of culture. There will be a question about anthropology, a broader question of anthropology, not only there, but in many questions. For instance, if there's a question about, let us say, caste or something like that, you try to bring in the fact that, we had to have a holistic study of the Indian society or the Indian villages. This led us to, sort of move from Varna study to caste study and regional study of different, something like that. You can always bring this. Okay, and see again, so in case you want to talk about field work, whom will you bring in? You will probably bring in like Malinowski and Evans Pritchard, many of these scholars who've done a lot of work, inspired by them. There are many others who have done it, things of that nature. Again, see, bring in Kroeber. Okay, this most scientific of humanities, most humanistic of sciences. Its contribution cannot be understated. Again, you can add something like this and conclude. Its contribution cannot be understated. Okay, Ruth Benedict, she basically says to make the world safe for human differences, right? We talk a lot about diversity, races, diversity, culture, diversity, biological adaptation, diversity, okay, tribals, diversity, caste-related hierarchies, diversity. You can have all of these in both your paper 1 and in your paper 2. Both in your paper 1 and in your paper 2. Biocultural, these sort of aspects. Use the terms nature, use the terms nurture, right? So many of these sort of ideas will go and will definitely go into your paper. See, when you talk about primates, please do have this. Okay, lemurs, Lorises, Tarsius, New World monkeys, Old World monkeys, lesser apes, orangutan. This is an excellent one. And all you have to remember is this 25 million years ago here and 6 million, 7 million years ago here. Ape versus ape and humans having the last common ancestor. Okay, and here somewhere 65 million. And all you've got to do is the prosimians and the anthropoids. If you can have this in any sort of question on primates, it will add a lot of value because you understand the whole perspective, you understand the whole evolutionary perspective. In case you're talking about primates, try to talk about Jane Goodall, who had done a lot of work with again, if you have seen our material, you will know Jane Goodall, who has done excellent amount of, a lot of work, in primatology and understanding primate social behavior, especially chimpanzee. Okay, then we had Diane Fossey with the gorillas, Birute Galdicus with the orangutan. Okay, chimpanzee, gorilla, orangutan. Okay, definitely trailblazers in the field of primatology. You have to introduce them. Okay, if it is paper 2, again, even if there is no question specifically on book view and field view, you've got to bring in book view and field view of M.N. Srinivas. Okay, book view. So these are terms that should definitely be in your paper. Okay, it is only because of field view, or the fact that you've actually gone out into the village and studied the relationship between different groups of people, you actually have a picture of the social realities are clearer. Okay, otherwise, it will not be clear. It will be very bookish, right? And same thing, in village study, Redfield, Singer, Marriott, bring in this topic of Little Republics, Charles Metcalfe. Okay, so basically this is almost like a book view, right? Again, see, this is how you connect. And rural cosmopolitanism, this is somewhere in the 1950s. Okay, this is by Oscar Lewis. Based on what? Field work. Okay, when it is field work, again, you go back to Redfield, you go back to village studies, right? And things of that nature, right? You guys know Little Republics, rural cosmopolitanism. This was there in your test as well. Again, if it is paper 2 LPV for most of the tribes, okay, especially if you're following our class notes and our material. Okay, Majumdar, because he has done a lot of work with the Ho, Korpas, and a lot of work with the tribals. Okay, you can use him here as well. Central Indian tribes, S.C. Roy, almost like the father of Indian anthropology. He was not an anthropologist by training, but he's in the 1910s, right? He has written a lot of work, especially on Central Indian tribes, the Santal, Mundas, Ho. Okay, M.N. Srinivas should definitely be there. And in fact, if you want to sort of connect it to paper 1, the scholars from paper 1, again, if you want to talk about the fact that, there is fieldwork tradition inspired by Malinowski and other sort of scholars, you can actually, again, bring in the scholars that you have studied in your paper 1 as well, right? I hope that is clear. So, and again, if there is any question you feel there is any applied element there, you try to bring in this aspect. Margaret Mead says that any anthropology is an applied anthropology and should contribute towards the betterment of humanity. Again, I'm paraphrasing this here because right? Any anthropology is applied anthropology, has an applied element in it and can and should contribute towards the betterment of humanity, as in it should be used for betterment. Okay, it should be used for application. Similarly, the same sort of an idea is mentioned by Malinowski as practical anthropology. Okay, even if there's a question about anthropology, you can actually mention, yes, practical anthropology and applied anthropology. If there's a question about the tribals, you can actually bring that in. If there's a question about development, you can bring that in. If it is about policies, you can actually bring that in. If there's a question on NGOs, if there's a question, so many of these questions can actually bring this in. So for instance, if there's a question about NMS, right, you can again bring in, applied anthropology element of Margaret Mead. You can actually bring in Malinowski. This is how you sort of connect paper 1, paper 2, wherever you can. So again, make a checklist of all of these sort of topics, all of these sort of scholars, all of these sort of quotes, all of these sort of ideas, and just try to map it in the first 5 minutes. So what you do in that first 5 minutes of writing your paper, by writing it in your question paper, you will have done so much of value addition already, because the rest of the work is just going to be about filling in. Okay, the rest of the work is mechanically just writing things. Okay, that is just your hand moving. But most of the thinking and most of the sort of value addition, what are the things that can actually impress the examiner, is something that you've already finished. Okay, in the first 5 minutes, you've sort of mapped all of these things that you have into your paper already. Last few days before the paper, okay, 2016, say 2019, the last 5 years of the paper, just take it, just Google the topics, the 10 markers, the 15 markers, just Google it. You have your own sort of material content, and just read some news, or any of the first few topics, first few links that come up, open it and read something about it, and you will remember at least a couple of things from that article. You'll be able to remember. For instance, just and why do I do this? Because it will give you some sort of uniqueness in your paper. Okay, and it is short-term memory, right? So something that you read there, you will realize, okay, that is something that I can sort of utilize for my exam in the last minute, whatever you read, it sort of helps you sort of come into your paper much quicker. So instead of like going and reading about entire anthropology, just take a look at the last one. So look at 2021. Look at, so for instance, there was a question about out of Africa theory. Okay, humans, okay, migrating out of Africa theory. Okay, just Google that and try to see what is the idea that you can get. Is there any sort of, what is the idea? If you understood the perspective regarding that, great. Okay, is there a particular scholar who has written that article that you've written? Take that also. So what do you take? Idea, scholar. Okay, and I'm so sorry about this handwriting because I don't want to waste your time. I just want to write really quick and finish it off. Okay, let's say endangered languages. Okay, agrarian social structure. Okay, ideally, what should have happened is that you have studied and you have prepared answers, and you have a very good perspective about all of these. But what I'm trying to do here is try to maximize your score based on whatever is already done. Okay, then we don't have much time to sort of do more things now. We had only 87 days here, and for all of your papers, and you have done your best. Now, just try to see if you can use any sort of such shortcuts to maximize your score. Okay, is this ideal? It's not necessarily ideal, but these are the last minute advice that I can, a piece of advice that I can give you, considering, I've actually gone through your paper recently. Okay, and just before the exam, tell yourself, before you walk into that exam hall, you just tell yourself that the paper is going to be bloody hard. Okay, it is now going to be easy. If it is going to be easy, there is some problem. You're not reading the question right, or something like that. Every single year, you go into the paper and you feel like, oh my God, what did UPSC just do? Okay, they are butchering anthropology, this, that, and everything. And every single year, you still have people scoring 320 plus. Okay, so you walk in with that mentality that the paper is going to be extremely difficult. Okay, there will be some questions that are easy, some questions that are medium, and some questions that are bloody hard. Okay, you walk in after you're prepared mentally for that. Okay, and you're not thinking about 300 or 320 or any of the marks. All you're thinking is that within those 3 hours, you're going to try to create some magic. Right, so and so, you try to map it to which particular topic in the syllabus it could be from. What is the knowledge that you have in that particular syllabus? And from there, is there any way, using the keywords in the question, can you craft an answer? Can you create some magic and write something that you can think of? How do you do that? Introduction, I'm going to do this. Body, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have 3-4 subheadings, and this is how I'm going to bring it in. Okay, these are the kind of scholars that I will do, and then go ahead and write it. You will have at least 20 to 30% of the questions that are going to be like this. 100%. Okay, questions that you have not seen before. Okay, you've not seen, absolutely not seen, but that is not what matters. Okay, what really matters is, let us say that even if I take for the sake of easy, okay, so there is 250. Okay, 50 marks, 200 marks is easy plus medium. Okay, and 50 marks, no idea. Okay, very hard. And this is how the paper is going to be. The whole point is you try to maximize here. Okay, and manage here. How much ever you can, you manage here. The score, the difference of somebody scoring 320 and somebody scoring 220 is actually in their ability to maximize here. Okay, and not here. It does not matter. Okay, everybody is going to score the same. If it's a 10 marker, the max you're going to score is 2.5, 3. Okay, that's it. Okay, even if somebody scores better than you, it is going to be extra 1 mark, 1.5 marks, and that's it. Okay, so do not worry about this. This is where you have to maximize. Okay, and think, when I say 200, it could be 180. It really depends on the paper. Okay, think of it as 180. There are easy, medium, doable questions you want to maximize here, and here you tried the best to manage with all the kind of resources that you have. That is your knowledge base, the scholarly base, the mapping base. Okay, things of that nature. So again, just 2 steps here, which is make a checklist. Okay, this scholar here, and then start mapping. The first thing that you want to do is map the scholar here, this definition here. Majumdar has to be here, LPV has to be here, Mead should be here, Malinowski here, Kroger here, and somehow you try to fit them in. It will show how much of an appreciation you have for the subject, because these are the professors who are going to be sort of teaching about these scholars day in and day out for 40 years. To see all of them in your paper is going to be absolutely sort of very, very happy to them. Okay, so and same thing, I'm going to have this stat here, this example here, this case study here. All of these things, you map it. Mapping, okay, in 5 minutes. After that, whenever you see the question, you just try to see, okay, this is one extra element that I have written here. I'm going to do that. And then your step 2 should be structure. Okay, plan your intro, plan your body. Okay, subheadings. Okay, subheadings. And work on presentation. If you've done this portion, it is basically 90% of your work is done. Okay, the rest of the work is basically only to sort of mechanically move your hand and write whatever you know. Most of the work, the subheadings. Okay, you've structured your answers. Okay, you have already mapped which kind of scholar you're going to use in your sort of significance or your conclusion in your answer. Most of the work is already done. So after that, it is just about writing this. Okay, and that's all I have. And I wish you the very best. It is going to be difficult for you to remember that. It is going to be difficult for you to think that I put in so much effort. Why should the question be so difficult? Why is the paper like this? Am I going to make it? Where am I standing so far after half an hour? Where do you think I am after 1 hour? Do not think about any of these things. Okay, just try to think that, let me just try to maximize the number of words. Let me just try to maximize my ability to execute my plans of my checklist and my mapping, and try to create some sort of a magic based on what I know till the end of the bill. Okay, and come what may, focus on 45 marks per 30 minutes, and that will ensure that you finish your paper. And if you can finish that paper, I think you will be able to maximize your score based on wherever you stand today. Okay, and I have no doubt that you will do really well. Okay, so all the best, and do well, and my wishes and my best wishes are all with you. Okay, any questions if you have, I will stick around. If not, all the best, and I'll send you some more things just like I did yesterday. Okay, some more tips, some more pointers, some more sort of extra pieces of value addition. Okay. You're most welcome, Kimpraj. Okay, all the very best. Anybody else? Any questions?